Welcome to the show, everybody. We are diving into a really fascinating area today. Um, it's where AI and architecture kind of like collide.
Yeah.
You've sent in some really interesting articles, especially about concepts in AI, latent space, zero space, and my favorite, the soup zone. And what's wild is how these ideas actually connect to liminal spaces, which
hmm
you find in architecture.
Right.
We also got some stuff about a company, Red Rose Appraisals, and how they're using AI. But we'll circle back to that. First, let's try to break down these AI concepts a bit, because believe it or not, they actually relate to how we experience, well, everything around us.
It really is fascinating how these ideas can bridge the gap between
Yeah,
this digital world of AI and then the physical spaces we're in all the time.
exactly. Okay, so let's start with latent space. To be honest, it sounds a little, I don't know, a little bit technical, a little jargony. What does it actually mean?
So you can think of latent space as this space of possibilities. It's within an AI system. It's where basically all these potential variations of an idea can exist, just sort of waiting to be explored in a way.
So it's not creating anything yet, it's more like a holding space.
Yeah, kind of. One of the articles you sent actually used the analogy of a music equalizer, which I thought was a really good way to think about
Okay,
it.
like adjusting bass and treble and all that.
Exactly.
How does that relate to AI though?
So imagine each slider on that equalizer represents a different dimension or a characteristic within the AI's creative space, right? So if you adjust one slider, you might change the color of an image, maybe another slider adjusts the shape or style of that image, something like that. Latent space is like having the control panel for all of that, so you can really explore all those variations.
Wow. So latent space is like it's where the AI gets to play around with all these different versions of an idea before it's like, okay, this is the one.
Exactly.
That's so cool. But where does it all begin? Like before
Yeah.
the AI starts, messing with those sliders, where is it?
That is where zero space comes into play.
Okay.
Zero space is this state of pure potential where no choices have been made yet.
Okay.
It's like a totally blank canvas, anything is possible.
I like.
If latent space is the control panel we were talking about, zero space is like the power button
Yes.
before you've even turned the system on.
Yeah. I'm starting to get it. Okay. So we've got zero space, which is the starting point, total potential.
Yeah.
And then we move into latent space, where AI starts to explore.
Yeah.
Okay. But you also mentioned the soup zone. What is that all about? It sounds messy.
You could say that the soup zone is where things get really interesting, I think. It's this chaotic creative space where you have the raw data, you have the algorithms and the AI's learning process all happening at once.
Wow.
It's called the soup zone because it really is like this big swirling mix of ingredients before anything, takes a solid shape.
So the AI is in this creative soup. It's experimenting, trying to figure it all out. Is that where the connection to architecture starts to kind of come in?
Yes, exactly. Think about those in-between spaces that you see in architecture all the time. Hallways, balconies, waiting rooms.
Yep.
Architects actually call those liminal spaces.
You know what? I can totally picture that. Like, I've been in buildings where maybe the hallway between
Yeah.
exhibits or offices or something, and it just, you don't feel lost, but you definitely feel like you're in this weird transitional space.
Yes, and that feeling right there, that is the key to understanding how these two seemingly totally different fields, they're actually connected, liminal spaces. They evoke this sense of this in-betweenness, right? This feeling of, I don't know, ambiguity and anticipation.
Yeah.
You're passing through, you're not quite at your destination yet, and it creates this very unique psychological effect.
Yeah, you're on the verge of something new, but you're not quite there yet,
Exactly.
which is exciting, but also kind of unsettling a little bit.
Exactly. And this is where we start to see the parallel back to AI, that soup zone, where the AI is grappling with possibilities, trying to make connections. It shares that same sense of undefined potential. Just like architects use those liminal spaces to evoke certain feelings, guide your experience, the AI has to navigate that soup zone before it can actually create anything.
So we're talking about two different types of spaces here, right? Like physical and digital, but they're both filled with potential and this sense of in-betweenness. But how does that apply to something like, I don't know, like real estate? We were talking about Red Rose appraisals. How can a company that appraises property be navigating a soup zone?
That's a great question. And to understand that, we need to look at the role of intention, both in AI and in architecture. What's fascinating is that Red Rose appraisals, as structured as they seem, they're actually grappling with those same questions of potential and possibility.
Okay, now I'm really curious. You mentioned they use AI in their process, right?
They do, yeah. And this is where the connection to those liminal spaces, that soup zone, becomes really intriguing. But before we get into that, we should probably talk about the crucial role of intention, both in AI and architecture.
So we're talking about intention, right? How it shapes not just like physical spaces, but also what AI is able to create. But how does that work with something like real estate appraisal, which always seemed to me like pretty, based on like solid facts and figures. It's not
Yeah.
subjective, right?
Right, that's where it gets really interesting because you'd think it's all about that hard data, right? Square footage, location, how much did the place down the street sell for last month? But there's this other layer to it too, which is really understanding the potential value of a space. And that's where I think it starts to connect with those AI concepts we were talking about.
Okay, so it's not just about what the house is right now. It's about what it could be in the future. Like
Yeah.
maybe it'd be an amazing restaurant or, I don't know, a co-working space or something.
Exactly. And that's where this company, Red Rose Appraisals, comes in. They're actually using AI not to just crunch the numbers, but to help their appraisers see those, I don't know what to call them, like hidden layers of potential that are kind of baked into a property.
Oh, wow. So how does that work? How can an AI see potential in a way that a human appraiser might miss?
Well, think about all the data points that go into like assessing a property, right? You've got market trends, you've got neighborhood demographics,
Mm.
architectural style, historical significance.
All
Even
right.
AI can analyze all of that way faster and more thoroughly than the person ever could.
So it's like this super powered researcher almost. It's digging up these insights that might not be obvious. It's like it's sifting through the soup zone of real estate, looking for like, I don't know, hidden value.
Exactly. But this is where, remember we were talking about intention?
Mm-hmm.
This is where it's crucial. Just like if you're an architect, you need a vision for a space. The AI needs some guidance to navigate all of that data and pull out the insights that are actually meaningful, right? That's where the human appraiser's expertise is still essential.
So it's more like a collaboration. The
Yeah.
AI isn't replacing the appraiser. It's like giving them superpowers or something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that interplay between remember the soup zone, all that potential, and then you need that intentional direction that we were talking about. AI brings this incredible ability to process huge amounts of information. It can see patterns that we might miss, but the human appraiser brings context and expertise and an understanding of the local market that the AI just doesn't have.
So it's almost like the AI is exploring the latent space of a property's value, and the appraiser is the one like adjusting those sliders, guiding the AI to the most insightful, valuable information. They're navigating that in between together, just like with
The spaces in architecture.
the liminal spaces.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I think it highlights something really important about AI in general. It's not about replacing human judgment or creativity. It's about building tools that actually enhance those things, help us see the world in new ways.
And in this case, those new ways of seeing actually impact, I don't know, like how we understand the value of the places we live and work, whether it's a home, an office building, or even just an empty lot.
Absolutely. And it brings us back to that feeling of in-betweenness. Remember, we were talking about that.
Yeah.
When you're in a liminal space, you're much more aware of the potential for change, the possibility of something new. And in a way, that's what AI is doing for us. It's helping us see the world with fresh eyes and be open to possibilities that, honestly, we probably would have missed otherwise.
So AI is giving us this new perspective on in-between spaces. And not just literally, but figuratively, too. We're not just seeing what is, we're seeing what could be. That's really cool. But before we get, I don't know, too carried away, what are some things our listeners can take from this? Even if they aren't architects or AI programmers or anything.
That's a great question. I think one of the biggest takeaways here is that liminality, that in-betweenness we've been talking about. It's not something to be afraid of, you know?
It's more like a starting point, in a
Yeah,
way.
exactly. And what's so cool is that it applies not just to those physical spaces, but to how AI figures things out too, how it processes information.
So whether we're walking down a really cool hallway in a museum or something, or looking at an image created by AI, we're tapping into that same sense of, like, whoa, anything is possible here. Like that soup zone feeling. It's all around us if we just pay attention to it, I guess.
Yeah. Exactly. And just like architects use those liminal spaces on purpose, right? To make you feel a certain way or to lead you somewhere, we can do the same with the soup zone, I think. We can use it to be more creative, to challenge how we think about things.
It's like AI is giving us a whole new way to understand how creativity works.
Yeah,
Not just in, computers and stuff, but in ourselves too. And maybe, just maybe, it's showing us that. Like those two things, they're more connected than we realize.
that is a great way to put it. And it makes me think of one final thought, something for your listeners to kind of take with them. The next time you're in a space and you just, you have to stop for a second, you get that feeling of in-betweenness, really pay attention to that.
Don't like shy away from it, but lean into it.
Yes. Ask yourself, like, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Not just about this hallway or this room, but about, like, how I feel about, I don't know, the unknown, the future, things like that. You might be surprised what comes up.
That is awesome. I love that challenge. Go out there and find those in-between spaces, explore them, see where they lead you. And a huge thank you to you. This has been an amazing journey through AI, architecture. Who knew they were so closely related?
It's always fun to chat with you.
And to everyone listening, thank you so much for sending us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another one. Until then, stay curious, everybody.